All right, everyone, we are going to be watching this video and to see how this teacher of mathematics is going to be using evidence of student thinking for her instructional next steps. I wish we could show the whole video, but we're going to be fast forwarding and stopping at different points and taking key moments to see how she's really eliciting use of her student thinking to drive her next steps. So let's watch this first clip.
Between two quantities. I've used your work from yesterday to put you into groups. So I did read over this, and thank you those of you that had nice comments for me. Also, like a smiley face, or I really liked because I asked you to rank on a scale of 1 to 5, and some of you got really creative. Whoever put 3.14, you just made my day. So today's lesson, we started out looking at containers, and I showed them a physical example of what 2 containers would look like, and I used small vases. We filled them with water of equal volume and looked at the height of the water in those 2 containers. Each of these water bottles has the same amount of water. If I were to pour it into those containers, just think to yourself, which one is the height going to be higher? The idea was that students would start to get a contextual understanding and be able to see what they were going to be working on later, abstractly, in a more concrete example.
So we're going to pause right there, and I want to ask you, how does the teacher use evidence of student thinking for her instructional next steps?
And I had assigned the groups based on their thinking from the day before. So I used the evidence that I found from listening to students and from the work that they submitted the previous day. So I had some students that were very solid on the concept of graphing the relationship between 2 quantities, and some students that were still developing those skills in the same group to be working together.
Taking a pause right there for just a moment. What 2 types of evidence did the teacher use to drive instruction? And how do you think that this would strengthen her students' learning?
And talk about, as you're putting them together, why you think things match up. And feel free to change your thinking. So take 5 minutes, and I'm going to check in as a group and see how you guys are doing. As I was walking around and listening to the groups, I was jotting down keywords that I was hoping to hear from the group. So I was hoping to hear words such as rate, increase, quicker, slower, faster. And so as I went by each group, I was jotting down the words that I had heard that group say. And if I felt comfortable that they were on to the correct ideas about the relationship between the volume and the height, then I'd move on to the next group.
Our question is, how did the teacher use evidence of student thinking? What did she do to show that she was looking at her students' thinking in order to drive instruction?
I knew that there were more graphs than there were containers. So there were 3 graphs that did not have a container that matched with it. So students were given more information than they needed to find the matches. So one group I noticed was having a hard time coming up with some of the matches. So I gave them the hints, and I told them which graphs did not have a container, and that could narrow their thinking. So that's okay, now you know that it doesn't. And so I watched what happened with that group, and once they knew which graphs were eliminated, they were able to re-examine their thinking now that they knew which graphs did not have a container. after I saw how that group reacted, I thought maybe as a class it would be nice if they knew which graphs were eliminated. So I called the class back together and then told all of the class which graphs did not have a container.
All right, and that's our last pause, our last stopping point. If you do want to see the full video, it's linked in the agenda, and it really is worth watching. Our last question is, how did the teacher use evidence of student thinking to scaffold and support her students' learning?